Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. Of course, as we promised last week, that when we come to this week, we will be in a position to talk about two important gatherings or rallies. The first one was on Saturday, the 16th of October, and the second was on the 21st of October, for two reasons. First, we're commemorating the 58th anniversary of 21st October 1964, which hosted a military regime led by Aboud after a revolution sparked in the University of Khartoum. Now we are in a position, definitely my guests here are in a position to evaluate and to see the repercussions, what will happen after these two rallies. And we can talk also about the size of the rallies and the effect of the rallies. So I'm glad to host in this episode our activist, very activist, Dr. Samani Hanoun. Dr. Samani Hanoun is a doctor in economic social studies in different universities. He's a freelancer actually, but he is the most important to be described as an activist, and he played a very important role and is still playing the important role in the revolution which hosted the Salvation regime after 30 years. Another guest, our friend Dr. Zuhair Bashar. Zuhair Bashar is specialized in a very delicate and very important issue, which is the conflict resolution. He is doctor in resolving the conflict resolution. That's why he's all the time roaming, moving in different parts of the country, from Darfur to the east to different parts. And we are glad because now it seems that, Dr. There, we are in a conflict. So I'm glad to host both of you in this important episode, and I will start by Dr. Samani Hanoun. Samani Hanoun, as I said, he's an activist. Just give us a brief idea about the two rallies. The one which started a rally in Saturday, the 16th of October, till this moment it stayed in around the presidential palace in a sit-in condition. They have their own demands. We will talk about this later. And you tell us about the millions, the big rallies of 21st of October, and first give us a description about both rallies and the effect of this on the widening gap between the military and civilian partners of the revolution.
Thanks to Sudan TV and especially Dialogue Horizon for this special moment to highlight two very important events took place in Sudan during the months of revolution, October. October is a well-known month among Sudanese people with a great achievement, and if we flash back the history, the great revolution of 1964 took place during October, and October 21st is one of the very important day in the life of the Sudanese people, from where people they can bring the whole aspirations to build the nations and to maintain the freedom of the people. Now history repeats itself. Again, October becomes the month of the revolutions. The most important two events, the rally of the two groups, the October 16 processions and October 21 or 21st processions. Needless to say that there is no comparison between the two events. The October 16 rally, especially sponsored by limited numbers of the revolution makers, and especially the peacemaker headed by the leaders of the movement of the armed movements in Darfur. But the 21st October represent the whole nation, the Sudanese nation, and send very strong message to the leaders in Sudan that Sudanese people strongly support the civil democratic transformation in Sudan. We cannot compare the two events because the October 21st rally is about 20 or more times of the sit-in rally of the October 16. So there is no comparison between the two events. The last one, the October 21, represent the whole nation, represent the very strong message by people of Sudan that Sudanese people now taking the track of the liberal democratic country. And again also sent a message to the military leaders that Sudanese people no longer support any types of military coup.
Let me intervene. Do you mean that those around the presidential problem 16, they are not supporting, they don't want the democratic transformation? Just let me be clear. Or
yeah, we can, at least we cannot say so because part of them they involved in December Revolution and they are part of the December Revolution, but they have their own principle, they have their own ideas and opinions about the control of the change and freedom by limited numbers of parties, political parties. So we cannot say, yeah, they have their own claim, which is micro claims within the dominant claims of December Revolution. So we can consider them part of the December Revolution, but they have own claims, they have own demands about to dismantle the control of four parties that control the change and freedom. And I think the Prime Minister should take this issue and consider, because December Revolution is the revolution of all Sudanese people. Sudanese people should share the decision-making process, and the Prime Minister should broaden the scope of participation, give more chances to the professional associations, for instance, the more political parties, more activists involved in the decision-making process, because the December Revolution is not an exclusive mission handled by only four parties in the economy.
Okay, Dr. Samani, we'll come back. We'll come back in detail. We'll talk to these issues because this is a very important issue. We have to be impartial. We have to look for a solution. Now we go to Dr. Zuhair. He is the conflict resolution. Dr. Zuhair, the conflict is, I tell you now, I'm sure you are following exactly, but from what Dr. Samani Hanoun said, it seems that the two rallies, both, he's confirming that, both, even those around the presidential palace, they were part and parcel of the December Revolution. They are claiming that the revolution has been hijacked or kidnapped by four parties only. So their demand is to dissolve the government and to enlarge the government, or to make a more inclusive government. So this is the conflict which is created, which led to these two big split. Unfortunately, what aggravated, maybe Dr. Samai later you talk to this, what aggravated this situation, one of the partners of the revolution took side. The military, to be frank, the military took side of those around the palace and in the east also. But this is the conflict. How can we go about this conflict? How can the Prime Minister adjust this conflict between two components who were part and parcel of the revolution?
Thank you very much, Jene Omar. Thank you for this opportunity. And I would like to say hello to all your viewers. And also I'd like to say hello to my colleague on the right, Dr. Samani. And I'm glad that he is here. Back to your question, I think in principles, any political party or any entity has the right to raise issues and to make their concerns and to make their voice heard. That's no problem in that. The only problem I can see with the rally in the 16th of October is that there are two or three issues. One, the rally coincide with some kind of calls made by the military component that they are talking about the failure of the civilian government, and they are saying that they are challenging the civilian government by saying that there is another sort of street that can support them, and that they are not going to sit with them down unless there is a consensus. So the rally comes after this immediately. That means it looks and it gives the impression that they are supported by the military component and they are covering for the military component. That is one thing. The other thing is also those who came and attended the rally, some of them are prominent figures from the National Congress Party.
The Ousted regime, yes.
The Ousted regime. And clearly have been identified and known, and some of them were spoken loudly in that rally and in the sit-in. So that's another issue. The third issue is the Prime Minister was trying to negotiate and bridge the gap between the two freedom and change forces, whether the original one or this one started at the who are sitting in the palace. He has already started the initiative long ago, about a month ago, the Prime Minister initiative.
Yeah.
It was fundamentally talking about reshaping and bringing together all the revolutionary elements and all the revolutionary forces in one place. So the Prime Minister was able to identify and diagnose the problem from the very beginning, and he was trying to bring these people to the table and to discuss. So I don't see any reason why the group of the palace is going for this sit-in. They have to exhaust all the possibilities of negotiations. And after they reach a deadlock, they can go for these options. So that's what I can see with regard to the sitting in the presidential palace. And I do agree with Professor Samani. There is no comparison between the number of the people who came out on the 21st of October and those who came out before on the 16th. Definitely, there is no comparison. And if we look to the component also, the number of the component of the people who are in the sit-in, they are very limited in numbers. You can talk about two armed forces, not all the armed forces, by the way. It's only two of them. And then we have another alliance from the peace tracks, whether from the east or the central Sudan. So if you compare this to the whole number of the people, it is very limited number of components within the social and change forces.
Okay, that's very good. That's very, very important. Now, both of you agree that the number of those who took to the streets in the country, assumed to be millions, 5, 6, 10 millions, no comparison between those who took to the streets on the 21st of October with those who are still in the city
also
area.
One thing more, if you don't mind, Engineer, that the qualitative comparison, we talk about the quantitative, there is no comparison. This is about 100 times double of the sit-in. Yeah, qualitative also. The sit-in, the presidential palace sit-in, targeted by the member of NCB. And that is very clear violation to the principle of December Revolution. This will never be accepted. The leader of native administration, and you know native administration, they are very active member of NCB in Sudan. And they very clear role in the Islamic movement. They are regular member. Again, they appear in the presidential sit-in. That actually clearly violates the principle of December Revolution. So I think by all means, the presidential sit-in will never represent the whole December revolution by all means. People from different parts of country, they join December 21st processions, and they make very important message. And this message comes from Ad-Da'an in Darfur, from Al-Fashir in Darfur. People of Darfur themselves, they send very clear message. They are in line with the civil democratic transformation. So why you are chatting here, Mr. The leaders are talking?
Okay,
Yes,
that's
and also here we have to appreciate the very brave decision by Dr. Al-Hadi Idris. He supported the will of the nation. The General Aggar also, he made very clear statement about supporting the people. So we have to make difference. Leaders, they have supported the will of the nation. Yeah, Hajar also supported the will of the nation.
So the leaders, because this is actually this is all about the revolution.
Yeah.
The revolution was for the transformation to a democratic civilian system.
Yeah.
Now, if there is any impediment to this movement towards democracy, then he definitely considered that the enemy. Definitely. So, but okay, let us go to the initiative of Dr. Hamdouk. Dr. Hamdouk, he felt well before these two rallies, it was almost 1 month back, he felt that and he presented an initiative, followed after the initiative, after the gap widened actually between the military component and the civilians, especially between the hot rhetoric between the Supreme Council members, Ahmed al-Faqih from one side and Burhan and Hamiti from both sides. They took it something personal, which in my mind is something not good. Because as leaders, we should not take something personal, which affects the whole country. And it did really affect the stability of the country. Now, as we can see that many people, different international community is trying to get involved. We are giving, okay, let us talk about the initiative of Prime Minister Dr. Hamdouk, in which he said he will form a nucleus.
Yeah, at the time, we expect that the military component and the peace partners to involve in the Prime Minister initiative. Unfortunately, they came with a new way. That is the rally of the 16. Which is heavily supported by the members of Collab regime, unfortunately. So that actually harmed the whole initiative forward or going forward by the prime ministers in order to sit down and to unite the all forces of December Revolution in order to ensure a smooth transformation or civil democratic transformation in the future. So the prime ministers exert some effort in order to gather these peoples and to sit together and to make a common factor that's shared by all parties. Instead of supporting the prime minister initiative, these people take a new track of simply can be described as you are going around the revolution. You want to actually to control the revolution by some members of the ex-regime or the collapsed regime of NCB, National Congress Party. So these parties are represent the red line to the revolutionaries. We never accept any participations of NCB in the activities of the December revolutions. So the rally of the 16 October actually gives chance to the rise of the members of the NCB, National Congress Party, especially the native administration. Native administration, again I will repeat, represents source of tribalism in Sudan, represents source of violating the constitution because it gathers the three powers, the legislative, the executive and judiciary in one person. That they don't care with the gender. Legal administration, those parties who share the NCB and part of the Islamic Front should be dissolved. This is a rational decision. Otherwise, one very big challenge will face the civil transformation. Needless to repeat that since December 2018 and up to now, no single leader of the native administration supported the December revolution. No single leader of the tribes. Some of them are wanted by the international community. the native administration, and by the way, they backing the military coup in Sudan, and they don't respect the freedom of the nation. So why we protect? The prime minister should take immediately action about native administration in the country, because now native administration represent one of the top challenge that face the democratic transformation in Sudan. Because simply they are in collaboration with the military forces and they will handle the transformation.
Also the regime also.
Yeah.
They are part. Okay, that's very clear. That's a very clear message to Prime Minister Hamdouk and Prime Minister Hamdouk, also Dr. Zuhair.
Yeah.
One of the issues raised by the second rally around the presidential office is that they want to be involved or to be on board of the cabinet, the prime minister, the cabinet of ministers. Okay. Don't you think that if these people, don't you think that the deviation from the constitutional document, which is stipulated very clearly that the transitional government should be composed of technocrats, non-partisan, and it started like this. Immediately after the revolution, it started by technocrats not affiliated to any political party. All of a sudden, and after the agreement of Juba, although Juba agreement did not stipulate, did not talk about this, immediately after that, the deviation happened, and parties, they went into the Council of Ministers, which was considered by the other group of the presidential office as the four groups are and did hijack the revolution. But don't you think that if the people, if there was no deviation from the constitutional document, and they continued even after Juba agreement, if they continued on the same policy of non-partisan, these people around the sitting, they should have nothing to claim, because the involvement of the four parties which now raised this and gave chance to others categorically opposing the revolution, against the revolution. Now they resurfaced in the sit-in area. Don't you think this is one of the reasons that the deviation from the document by involving parties, only four parties in the cabinet?
Thank you, Engineer Omar, for this question. It's a very good question indeed. But in principle, I disagree with the issue of these four parties controlling everything. Unfortunately, this is not true. If you look to the parties that participated in this cabinet, there are more than 17, not only four. This is one thing. The other thing is the issue, the conflict within the freedom and change forces started a long time ago. It started immediately after the collapse of the regime. If I can take, if you recall, late Sadi al-Mahdi, the Imam Sadi al-Mahdi, he spoke about this very early. And even the Ummah party took the decision of frozen their membership in the freedom and change forces. Later on, the Communist Party.
Till now, till this moment, Communist Party is out.
Communist Party left the alliance, the FFC, the FCF or FFC. They left it. So the problem was embodied there a long time ago. It is not something new. The other thing is the products of these people, especially the two armed forces who came and took part according to Juba agreement. The paradox is these forces, who they are calling the four parties that hijacked the whole revolution, these are the same people that they negotiate in Juba, the same people that they endorse Juba agreement in the constitutional document. It is the same people that they sit together with and form this government and agree that political parties should take part. It is the Juba agreement that deviates the FFC from the original document to accept and to please the Juba group by going to represent political parties in the new cabinet. It is not something coming from 4 parties or 17 parties. No, it is not. So I think the right thing is, when you want to resolve a conflict, you have to go back to the root causes of the conflict. If you are just looking to the manifestation of the conflict, you will never. Conflict like a tree. It has the roots, it has stem, and it has these leaves over there. So if you keep looking to the leaves and try to deal with this, the roots are still there, and you didn't reach it, it will remain. Even if you cut all the branches of the tree, it will evolve again. Because
so they have to go back down.
They have to go back down to the root causes of this conflict. The root causes embodied, as I can see, not in the military component, although I have some reservations with regard to the performance of the military component, but it is deeply rooted within the civilian group. It is embodied within the freedom and change forces, because they have been divided from long time ago. And they have to come together, sit together, and resolve their differences. Unless they are divided, the military component cannot intervene and cannot have this enthusiasm to have their own agenda or to jump into the leading force of this revolution. So the problem is, as I can repeat and repeat, it is within the freedom and change forces, and we have to look on that group and to figure out what is it exactly. And I call for both parts to be very frank and not to hide behind their fingers. It is within you, and you have to find to diagnose it clearly, identify it clearly, and then sit together to resolve it.
Who is minding the story? Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
So you are saying that the freedom forces, they started a long time ago. It started by late Imam al-Tadiq al-Mahdi. He started murmuring, and they put out for a while. Later, the Communist Party, which is very effective and important. It played a very important role. The Communist Party played a very important role in the revolution. Now
the professionals themselves are divided and split it into.
Dr. Zuhair, it is not hijacked by only 4 parties, because a professional association also there. They share on the cabinet of the ministers. So the assumption that this government is hijacked by only 4 is not true, because it consists of a wide range, and this is the comprehensive government in Sudan. Also, one thing, I think there are some dimensions to be considered. These 2 rallies, you can think about ethno-directional competition in these 2 rallies. So we have to be aware of that. In December Revolution, we never accept any sort of ethno-directional movements. People, they should work in line with the December Revolution. December Revolution for all people. When they raise the slogans of the peoples to the al-Bashir, and you are the dictator, and everyone here is the Darfurian, that means people, they destroy any sort of ethno-directional movement. So violating the principles of the December Revolution itself, it should be taken into consideration. The Prime Minister,
you think that these people around the palace, they are raising the flag of the ethnicity in a way or another, which is very...
we have to be careful about this. In December Revolution, we don't accept such movement.
Let me ask you about another question about the Ummah Party. The Ummah Party issued a statement 2 days ago. They are talking about that the conflict is deep and it is strong. It seems that it's not clear what was behind this statement of our Ummah Party. They are saying that Sudan is a juncture, very precarious and very dangerous and things like this. And they are part of the government and part of the governance. What do you think? Do you have an idea what is behind this statement?
Definitely, this will reflect the volume or the aggregate of the crisis, in the political crisis, and even the Ummah party is a moderate party in Sudan, and one of active player in December revolution, came to this very passive statement about the congestion, about the crisis of the December revolution. So I think, especially the statement released by the Secretary General Birer about to dissolve all the institutions in the country that reflect the stage of depression, of a state of disappointments of the people from the current position in Sudan. And this is also exclusively stated by the Prime Minister when he talked that we ever faced such a problem like today. So we need to work together, we need to unite. Again, I ask, what is the contribution of the military component to enhance the civil democratic transformation during the last 2 years? You will get big zero, unfortunately.
So you think that the military partner is not doing enough?
It's doing enough, yeah,
Not
to
only
support.
doing enough, but is still putting some hurdles on
Yeah, through native administration.
through native administration.
Yeah, here, everyone, they know the insides of this country.
Port Sudan, the issue of Port Sudan,
Yeah, the Nazar Tariq
who is behind it, everyone knows now.
Yeah, Nazar Madibo came from Abdaan to support the sitting in the presidential palace. That is not, I think, the core function. So they have to support the December Revolution. December Revolution is a nation revolution supported by the whole world. So we don't like to miss this golden opportunity to build our country. Let us unite. Let us work together. Let us protect the freedom of the nation. Don't think about the old history. Go back again to the military coup and also again to support. That will not serve the interest of the nation. The interest of the nation, we have to unite. We have to act according to the principles of the December Revolution. The freedom, peace, and social justice. Very clear. No need to make rally or to call or to talk about any December Revolution design roadmap for the whole nation.
What is your comment on what Dr. Deher mentioned about, let us forget about the other partner, the main part, the mainstream, which is the Freedom Force, Free FFT,
Yeah.
with its components, especially the Association of Sudanese Professionals. He is saying that they have to get organized, otherwise the country will lose the effort of everybody, and the opposition will succeed in stopping the transformation.
They need to move into constitutional form. My advice is, they have to create some legal bodies. They have to elect, for example, the associations. They make election for associations. They have to build constitutional framework. They have to work hard in order to unite the whole forces. You see that the resistance group now outside this the groups not working within the actively within the change and freedom, because they have their own claims. They have own way to express themselves. So we want to create one body headed by the Prime Minister in order to protect the civil transformation in Sudan. I think unless we sit together and we draw the peace partners, the change and freedom, the resistance groups, all components of the December Revolution, they have to develop one manifesto. That manifesto, call it December Revolution Manifesto. All people, they should go in line, not to allow other people while they are in power, while they are in the government, they ask to dissolve the government. How you understand this contradiction? It is very, you need to make a principles, framework, I think constitutional framework for this institution. The constitutional documents is still facing some weakness, some drawbacks. It is a man-made. We can get something, you can develop this constitutional development. Okay, this is controlled by a few number of people at a given stage of time. But now we are mature enough to consider the constitutional development in a new way, in order to consider the latest development in peace, in economics, in different parts. We can make development in constitutional documents. We don't keep it as it is. So why not?
Okay. Okay, Dr. Zuhair.
Yes, please.
Do you think that is there any justified reasons, any good reasons for the postponement or suspension of the meetings of the Supreme Council, and which is affecting the whole process of transformation to the democracy, and on grounds not grown up grounds like bad rhetoric between two members of the Supreme Council or Council of Ministers. Do you think does this justify the suspension of the activities of the Supreme Council and consequently the legislative body, the temporary legislative body, which is a composition of the Council of Ministers and Supreme Council? Now the Supreme Council decided to suspend its activities.
Sure.
Do you think is there any justification for it? Is it something good?
Thank you for the question. I don't think there is any justification for this because it looks like people are not to the level of the responsibility of statement. If you are in a position of state person, you have to behave as a state person, not to personalize things and get angry of this and that. These are institutions. It is state institutions, cannot be administered as private entities or like or dislike. But before this, let me go back. I always want to, when it comes to conflict, you have to look into the root causes. Again, here, the root causes embodied within the Supreme Council is the imbalance of power between the civilians and military. Another thing is the mechanism of decision making. There was a big mistake in the constitutional document that the decision should be according to consensus. What is it? It's not going to work because we are in a situation to handle very, very big issues after the revolution, and some very tough and important decisions need to be made. So if there is no consensus, does that mean we should wait?
No.
This is why up to now we don't have the constitutional court. This is why up to now we don't have legislative. This is why we don't have president of the judiciary. This is why we don't have the attorney general up to date after the other one resigned that time. So the issue of the conflict between the two components, the civilian and military component, is embodied in this. And I do agree with Dr. Samani, when he said this constitution is not something come from the sky. It is not a holy Quran or Bible. The constitutional document, as have been adjusted to include Juba Agreement, it can be adjusted to resolve these issues. It needs to be reviewed, it needs to be revised, because we are in a transitional process and we don't have an experience in this. So our experience is developed when we are going along. Whenever after 3, 5, 6 months, you find there is an obstacle, you come together with a faithful, good, I mean in a good, good tension, and to resolve, to review this document and to revise it and to adjust it in a way that it can accommodate the obstacles that emerge in our way. But to just for the two of them, each one step back and they suspend the most important institutional body in the state, this is really something disgracing.
But it's not both. The suspension came from the military component. To be fair, they decided. The opponent
yes, I do agree with you. Yes.
The two IC, the second, they said that they will never sit with.
That is true.
Again, in the table with
Burhan and Hameti mentioned that.
Yes,
that. But the problem comes from the accusation and counter accusations, and at the end of the day, it ends up to this decision.
Which is not good.
Which is not good at all. The other thing I would like also to go back to is the Juba Agreement. From the very beginning, Juba Agreement was led by the military component, even though the constitutional document says the Prime Minister is supposed to lead. So why is it That's from the very beginning.
the
There
beginning,
there is a violation for the
Not
constitution.
violation, actually. The Prime Minister should have
Exactly, should have taken a
grabbed this
decision. Yeah, should have
the
stopped it
beginning.
immediately.
Yes, you are right.
So you give the chance for the military component to expand their role, and when it comes to, you remember the economic committee, also it was the head was given to Hemeti. So he also voluntarily agreed to hand over his own role.
Issues. You
Yeah,
are right.
yeah.
From the beginning, they should have a grip, especially on the peace process.
Exactly.
Because peace negotiation, as you know,
Yeah.
is something very sticky.
Very sticky.
A lot of foreigners were involved.
Yeah.
So they needed some people of guts and intelligence.
Skills.
And yes,
By the way, I remember
experience.
I was in Qatar in January 2020, and I was invited for a symposium there. I was invited by the Sudanese Professional Association there to make talk about the peace, because the peace negotiations were ongoing. So I made it clearly, the tracks model cannot work in Sudan.
Yeah, trust.
I told them they should avoid this. We have big issues. Issue of constitution, issue of justice, issue of governance, issue of wealth, all these issues, it concerns the whole country, and it concerns the whole Sudanese. And the issue of the central government or federation also need to consult all the regions, not only 2 or 3 regions. So I told them, instead of focusing on tracts, focus on the issues, and take the whole negotiators to come into Sudan, and let every group, whether armed movements or whoever, to go back to their region, make a kind of conference, come up with representatives of each region. The representative of each region should come here in Khartoum, and they decide. If some people want even the self-determination, they can take it. But let us sit down, talk to each other, put all these issues frankly and openly on the table, and after that you can reach an agreement. But if you select some people to go to the Juba and make an agreement according to the track, and they came here to claim they represent the people, and some regions will see this as you just ignore them. But you haven't given them the equal right to be on the table. Yeah, the issue of representation. So this now, as Samani mentioned, has led to a kind of regional and ethnical pluralization. I'm afraid it's going to reach, which is very bad for the country. It can drag our country into a more serious and violent that might never happen before. This is a serious issue. Yeah.
It's very serious polarization on ethnicity, which is now one of the tools used on the other camp. Is something definitely not nationalistic, not responsible, and it will lead to the collapse of the whole project of everybody, including those who are now supporting it.
Exactly.
I think people should refrain from this issue of ethnicity or trying to embolden their situation, their condition by ethnicity. Either in the east or the west coast are very fragile fabrics. So this is
east, west, north, even in the north.
Even in the north.
You remember, some people are talking about. So this is very dangerous.
This is very dangerous.
Yeah, you have to avoid this.
Okay, Dr. Samani. Okay, let us go to another important issue, which we believe in. It will have an effect. The element of the international community. Now we have seen that the shuttle diplomacy. Every 2 days, somebody coming from America, from Troika, so it seems that there is a concern. Maybe also Dr. Zuhair will after Dr. Samani will share us with your idea, because it's a very important element. What can you tell us about the involvement and the people, the international community,
Yeah.
It's putting more
Yeah,
load.
yeah. The international community pay more attention to the case of Sudan, and there is a continuous conveys who visit Sudan and delegations every week. Every time we receive some delegation from UN, from USA, from Troika, these are partners of Sudan in the civil democratic transformation process, and I think their greater role is needed now because Sudanese people, even they need some technical advices about how to take the political issues and how to sustain peace in the country. Now we build the peace, but we are targeting to sustain peace in Sudan. And I think what happened during the last few weeks is a physical product to the Juba Agreement. Juba Agreement, there are some side effects, and we mentioned before here in Dialogue Horizon. So this is a part of the side effects of the Juba Agreement, which is, there are some strategic mistakes committed. But I think we can develop the agreement. Even the Holy Quran gives chance to the jurist in order to give more explanation to the nation through history. So why we don't develop the constitutional documents? We have to develop the constitutional development in order to include the latest development I mentioned. I think the very active movements of the international community in Sudanese discourse is a must, especially during this very critical time of the Sudanese, to protect Sudan from the military coup. And this is most important. Again, to protect the civilians from the human rights violations. You know, Sudan has very long demonstrated history in the human rights violation. So the involvement of the international community, whether through Troika, through UN, through Friends of Sudan, I think is important in order to back the civil government to achieve the goal of the December Revolution. The delegations of the international community target to meet the basic goals of December Revolution, to protect the freedom of the nation, to maintain the peace in the country, and also to, most important, to ensure justice by sentencing the criminals before court. And this is very important, I think, in order to protect and preserve the rights of the victims during the national conflicts and during the era of the human rights violations in Sudan. I think the involvement of the international community can back the civil government and support the civil government in order to achieve the strategic goal of December Revolution.
Okay, so you see that is conducive to the transformation. Dr. Zahir,
Yes.
what about this issue, the involvement of the international community, the very close involvement? Do you think it is something good, conducive to the transformation? Do we need it? We need a broker and external forces like the Troika and America?
Yes, of course. Sudan is not working in isolation of the international community. And the international community role has come very early when they helped Sudan to be out of the blacklist, when they helped Sudan to be removed for the economic sanctions, and they also helped with regard to the facilitation of the negotiations in Juba.
Yeah.
And the only thing I was not happy about in Juba was the international community having been involved heavily. I think when you come to a fragile situation like the situation of Sudan, you need a guarantor for the peace. And this guarantor needs to be a very strong guarantor who can have the stick and carrot. But unfortunately, if you look to the southern Sudan is a very weak country and they have their own problems like us. So they can't put any pressure on the parties to the conflict or the peace parties. I'm sure if this agreement, Juba agreement, was sponsored by international powers, for example, like America or Great Britain, they should have put their pressure on the parties to the
So you
agreement.
see that some people who have leverage
Exactly. They have
by which they
leverage.
can
Yeah.
affect or they could put pressure on
The parties,
yes.
and they can build good relations with these parties. And when it comes to exerting pressure, they can exert pressure, and they can, pressure, and then give some kind of consensus.
Okay.
Concessions.
Okay, now
So
we have few minutes, but we'll ask. Okay,
I just want to, if you want to ask, please. No.
You have 1 minute to finish. I give you 1 minute to finish.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to conclude. If we want to address this conflict, we have 3 issues. One issue is the issue of disagreement between the freedom and change forces that need to be addressed. The issue of the repercussions of the Juba Peace Agreement, as we can clearly see it in the East, we have not to wait to see it in the West or other places. And the third point is we have to stick to the constitutional document. Yeah.
Okay.
We have to stick to the
Okay, this is
constitution.
very important. Okay.
Yeah, I think,
we have only 1 minute.
Okay.
But
I think
tell me about the issue of the Port Sudan, the issue of the blockage of the East.
Yeah.
In 1 minute, how will it be? Can it be solved?
Yeah, I think can be solved. Now we have a new environment, we have a new atmosphere. The Prime Minister can hold direct talks with another Tirik in order to compromise this issue, and they can reach to agreement, because now after the October 21st, there is a new environment, there is a new climate. People, they know who control the power. The people of Sudan control the power. So the Nazir Tirik should go to the prime ministers and they can share. What I just want to say as a conclusion for this special meeting, that the people of Sudan waiting for decision from the prime minister. When people, they uprise and they join processions in Yala, in Al-Da'an, in Al-Fashir, they are waiting for decision the prime minister. Okay. The prime minister, I think there are 4 decisions are very important. One thing about the unified armed forces in Sudan. This decision should be taken into consideration. Number 2, the native administration in Sudan, the role, whether they support the civil democratic transformation in Sudan or not. Number 3, the religious set in Sudan. This institution from the old Sudan, they will not pave the way for any civil democratic transformation in Sudan unless some very aggressive decision to be taken by Prime Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is very strong. Okay, thank you, dear viewers, for being with us the last hour or so in this episode of Dialogue Horizon. We hope to see you next week on good news about the effect of the rally of the 21st of October. Thank you, and bye. See you next week.